I want you to imagine laying in a hospital bed, having doctors poke your legs with sharp pins and ask, "Can you feel that?" As you lay there, they continue to poke and prod. And did I mention you can't feel anything? Well, that was me 4 years ago when I was paralyzed from the waist down. But that's in the middle of the story. Let's go back 2 short months. Excuse me. When I was 12, my family and I were planning a trip to China. And like good little travelers, we got all of our immunizations. And believe me, we got a lot of them. We got so many, in fact, I felt like a human dartboard. Now, why would I bring this up? Because one of those immunizations changed my life forever. Now, it didn't hit right then, but it all culminated as my legs started to hurt in the middle of China at a place called Thousand Buddha Cliffs. Which, by the way, if you ever make it to China, this is a must-see. But back to my story. My legs started to hurt, and it wasn't just, "Ow, my legs hurt, I need to sit down." Think of it this way. You're doing curls, and you do 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 2 million, do as many as humanly possible. Are you hurting? Now, do one more. That searing pain that you have right there in the core of your muscle, that's how bad my legs hurt. When we finally got back home, and believe me, Dorothy said it best, there's no place like home, especially when you're sick. When we got home, I fell quite a few more times and ended up in the pediatric intensive care unit at Presbyterian Hospital, where, well, that brings me back to the beginning of my story. The pinpricks were part of a full neurological exam that I had to endure along with a spinal tap, which all concluded that I have a condition called Guillain-Barré Syndrome, which I will be referring to in the rest of my speech as Guillain-Barré or GBS. Now, www.ers.usda.gov Food Safety Glossary section defines GBS as an autoimmune reaction of the body that causes weakness, paralysis, and occasionally death by affecting the peripheral nerves. Now, does anybody here know how uncomfortable a hospital bed can be? Well, I spent 18 days laying in one. The only upside to my hospital experience was that I had great nurses and therapists that turned the hospital hallways into the Indy 500 for wheelchairs. And by the way, they always let me win. After another month of therapy in outpatient care, I was given a clean bill of health. Now, let me go into a little bit more detail about Guillain-Barré. First of all, Guillain-Barré is not a contagious disease. So, does anybody here want a hug? Now, but it does contain highly life-threatening effects. Georges Charles Guillain and Jean-Alexandre Barré recorded and carefully examined their patients with this fatal syndrome. And this illness is named after both of those dedicated French physicians. There are no precise tests to conclude about Guillain-Barré, but there are some that they do to get an accurate finding. These tests include reflex tests, physical exams, protein CFS tests by a spinal tap, lumbar punctures, and nerve conduction velocity tests. The first precise case of Guillain-Barré was reported in 1859, where there was a report of 10 patients with ascending paralysis, which until 1876 was the only term used to describe this illness, because the numbness starts in the feet and the hands and progresses to the core of your body. I have a lot of facts. Now, you all know me, and I have Guillain-Barré. Did you know that the actor Andy Griffith also had Guillain-Barré? What about President Franklin D. Roosevelt? It took doctors until 2003 to conclude that his paralysis, long attributed to poliomyelitis, or polio, was actually Guillain-Barré. Guillain-Barré is reported in up to 1.6% out of every 100,000 children and adolescents. And it affects approximately 16% of children after triggering fatal symptoms like respiratory failure. Now, that's not the end of my story. Lately, I have been tested for MS and thyroid disease. You remember that clean bill of health that I got? Well, yeah, that was true. And am I asking you to feel sorry for me? No. I don't have MS. And I'm trying to remember Romans 8:28 and know that all things work together for good.